Ladies and gentlemen, won't you please join me in welcoming the one and only Slick Rick.
Check, check.
How you doing today, sir?
I'm all right, Jeff. What's up?
It's a great honor to have you here in the Bronx, where I do believe it is said that people are fresh.
Yeah, okay, all right.
Tell me what the Bronx means to you. You were not born in the Bronx, however,
Right.
this has been your home for some time.
The Bronx is like the birthplace of hip hop. It's a multicultural place, like a lot of Latins mixed with blacks. You know what I mean? And we just had fun breakdancing, doing our thing growing up. You know what I mean? Hip hop became a toy for us instead of graffiti and all the rest of that stuff. And we just worked it to where it is now. You know? So it's just a nice cultural thing. Yeah.
What was your first memories of encountering hip hop as, as a kid living here, moving here from England?
I guess it was the big boom boxes. With the older brothers would have the big boom boxes, and they would be playing like breakbeat records, Daisy Lady, Impeach the President, and whatever was happening. You know what I mean? And back and forth mixing it like that, and on the back of the trains and stuff like that. And it was just very stimulating. You know what I mean? It was like meat and potatoes. You know what I mean? So pretty much it was like taking whack records and taking the meat and potatoes and then keeping it moving like that. So, and then rapping on top of it. So it was like pure meat and potatoes. You know what I mean? There used to be a group called Daisy Ladies. And so I remember them. They used to be hot because females, the whole tough, what's the look I'm saying? The tomboy look was hot back then. You know what I mean? Yeah. And everything was flavor, So like if you're in a small community where you have little options, you get to drawing on the walls and doing little things with your body to make yourself differ from everybody else, or whatever, your raps, whatever's clever, you know what I mean? So it was a fun time for us, yeah.
Where'd you grow up in this area?
I grew up 233rd Street, 241st Street, it's a little further up, all the way up in the north. But I used to play around here because it's more stimulating, Yeah.
Now, you've obviously inspired many people to pick up the mic and become MCs. Who were some of the people who inspired you back then?
The Cold Crush brothers inspired me the most because they have routines and they knew how to pick good records to rap on. And they pretty much come from the Bronx, so they did their things in the schoolyard, so it's all free, so we get to see a lot of stuff or hear a lot of stuff loud, which is also very stimulating. You hear the whole thing real loud in the streets, you know what I mean? It was like a lot of fun. So Cold Crush Brothers, I'd have to say, was one. I'd have to say Busy B, with his ball, diddy ball, to bang to bang. And that was pretty much it for me for the Bronx, yeah.
Now, perfect that you should mention those guys because, anybody who studies the music and knows the history and knows your catalog can sort of see some of that influence from, say, a Cold Crush and their singing routines, or a Busy Bee, or a Grandmaster Caz with his storytelling. Now, you're known for storytelling. I mean, for a lot of us, hip-hop storytelling is divided between before Slick Rick and after. So how did that develop for you, the signature sort of style of yours?
Well, when I was going to high school, I used to English was probably my favorite subject. So, you study essays, how you write an essay. You have your beginning, then you have your body, and then you have your end, like the teacher teach you, So that's pretty much what rap was. It was like 3 verses, story style. You start with the beginning, what you're going to talk about. Then you get the body is what the whole thing, and then the end is like even a message, like Melly Mel's "Don't Push Me Because I'm Close to the Edge" or whatever, which one I'm talking about. Yeah, exactly. So pretty much it was like an essay, So we write I write like essays, stories with mostly positive endings or whatever the case like that, and that's pretty much my style like that. And humor, throw in some humor, kids, how I go. Yeah.
Always humor, yeah. Tell us a little bit about the Kangol Crew, for those who may not be aware of who those folks are and how that crew formed.
Kangol Crew was basically a high school group. Dana Dane was one of the members. we didn't have turntables and mixers and all that stuff. We wasn't that we was poor, so we just banged on the desk and made up cute routines and bothered the whole school with our little routines. We went to music and art, multicultural school, and so we used to just bang on the desk and make these cute routines and stuff, And then we used to wear the hat Kangol because Kangol was part of the fashion of the game, Anything to make yourself, anything to sell yourself, sexy, whatever, So we had the Kangols and the suit jackets, and we used to just play around like that, Then when we got famous, we took it to the TVs. Yeah.
Now, was Dana Dane rhyming the way he's known to be rhyming? I mean, that seems like is your influence on him because he's from Brooklyn originally, right?
Yeah, Dana's from Fort Greene. Dana didn't used to rap like that. It was the industry that pushed him to sound like something that sells already. You know what I mean? They said, well, if this sells, then you should sound similar with an English accent or whatever clever. So he did what he had to do to get his foot in the door. You know what I mean? So whatever's clever like that.
What was the first reaction from folks when you started rhyming back then? Even before records, with your voice sounding the way it sounds, so unique. Right.
Well, before it didn't sound. I had a high-pitched voice like a girl, because voice didn't change yet. You know what I mean? So nobody wasn't checking for the kid like that. You know what I mean? It was like whatever. It's cute, whatever. But then as he grew, and after high school, and the accent, and the maturity in the voice came out with the English accent or whatever's clever, it all worked together like that.
Yeah, exactly what you mentioned. I'm thinking, early 80s.
Yeah.
It's more like either the old school flow, like a Flash in them, or 83-ish we get to, that sort of more aggressive style.
Right.
But you were able to find your place. What was the turning point, do you think?
I think it was more stories and humor and knowing how to pick the right record to rap on, and fashion. You gotta have the fashion mastered. You know what I mean? Like I said, the Kangols, the Clock Wallabies. Before the Clock Wallabies and the Kangos, it was Adidas and Pumas and Croquettes, mock necks, silver medallions, and stuff like that. But then the Bronx moved on. Well, not really, Brooklyn too. With the Jamaican, the Clock Wallabies, and the whole suit pants and the slacks and the shirt. It was just like a mature look, so it looked good on a young person, because you look better when you're young trying to look old than if you're old trying to look old. So it looked slick to see a young kid wearing shoes and slacks and dress shirts with a little stylish piece of jewelry here and there, and a little Kangol, and a little glasses to sell yourself. Yeah.
Were you rocking the sunglasses back then? When did you?
Well, I used to wear like a contact lens, anything that camouflaged, the eyes, because the eyes is kind of messed up. You know what I mean? And then gradually, I just started wearing. I was wearing the Ray-Bans for a while, and then after a while, I just said, I'm just gonna wear the patch. And then the patch seemed to have caught on, you know what I mean? So I just stuck with the patch. Sometimes I wear the glasses, but most people prefer the patch.
How did you meet Dougie Fresh?
I met Dougie Fresh at 170th Street on Jerome Avenue at this rap battle they was having over there. They used to have these rap contests in the Bronx where they would get all the people together to see who was the best, and whoever win get $1,500 and a little recognition. So Doug was already established, so he was one of the judges. So me and this other kid from my school named John Porterfield, he died, God bless, whatever, he was in the contest, and I just went to just play around, and he invited me on stage with him, and then we just did our thing. Cold Crush was there that day too, and so we did our thing, and we got recognition, and Dougie said, yo, we should do something together. I was pestering him long before that, but he wasn't paying no attention, you know what I mean? So at the Skate Key and the Skate Fever and stuff like that, because like I said, he was already established. He had records, so he'd go and he'd perform and do his little thing.
Right. He had records on Enjoy, I think, at that time already, right? Human beatbox and just having fun, maybe, and some stuff like that. Do you remember what you kicked that day that impressed Dougie?
Not really. It might have been Pizza Lottie Dottie or something like that, can't recall too clearly, but whatever it was, it made an impression.
So
On
once you guys formed together,
Right.
Get Fresh Crew, I guess just tell us a little bit about how that all started to come together leading up to the single you guys recorded.
Well, Doug used to carry me around with him to when he was doing his shows, and he would just like highlight me or something on the show, like he does with Little Vicious and stuff. So I would just come out and do my little lottie-dottie or whatever, some small routine to make the crowd. First they would look at you like whatever, skinny nerd trying to get put on, whatever. But then when you kick the humor and they got to laughing and enjoying themselves, it sold itself. So it was like, yeah, it's an asset. I became an asset to Doug's show, Yeah.
How long, now was Lottie Dottie the first routine that kind of became a signature thing for you guys, or was there something else that you guys worked on? 'Cause
I mean, we did other things like other little routines, but it was pretty much Lottie Dottie and the show, you know what I mean? So Lottie Dottie went around, before it became a record, it was already a mixtape. It was like all over the place. It surprised both of us because it was just like a record that wasn't out, but everybody had it on a cassette, you know what I mean, from going to his shows.
Just from a live recording, right?
Right, and
Yeah.
then once his label saw the popularity of this cassette all over the streets, they decided to make it into a record, which turned it global. Yeah.
Now the show and Lottie Dottie,
Yeah.
huge classic hip hop single.
Yeah.
How was that experience for you? I mean, you went basically from this, like you said, a skinny kid.
Yeah.
People started like looking at you funny, like who is this guy? All of a sudden, you're internationally known.
Right. Well, like I said, back then it was a hard rock thing. You know what I mean? You had to be able to shake a move in the hood. You know what I mean? And slim guys, they don't get too much respect unless you packing. No disrespect or nothing. And so how that goes. So yeah, it was a nice experience. You know what I mean? So to go from, I had a job. I used to work at Lehman Brothers, and places like that downtown, like in a mail clerk.
Okay.
So once Dougie put me on, the difference in the finance was I used to make like $520 a month. And that's working every day too, 5 days a week, you know what I mean? 200 after taxes, 260 every 2 weeks. And my rent was $350. So you can figure out 520 minus 350 leaves how much for food and tokens and floss and fun and whatever, old English or whatever. You know what I'm saying?
Tough to make that stretch.
Yeah.
I always like to ask people, when they had like their day jobs before they blew up, was there any cross overlap like between when you were still at Lehman Brothers and when the record was coming out and all the buzz was starting to grow?
Yeah, well, I was still working when the records was taking off.
Really?
You know what I mean? Yeah. So it got to the point where it was like, we gotta leave now, kid. You know what I'm saying? It's a wrap. Because 260 compared. Well, at first, it's getting like 300 just to perform with the kid. You know what I mean? And that was like, and I'm getting 260 every 2 weeks. You know what I mean? After taxes. So eventually, when it just kept going and going and going, Madison Square Garden type tip. You know what I mean? It was like, doesn't make sense to stay at your job, and when you could be getting 300 a shot.
What do you think was, yeah, absolutely. What would you say was the apex, the high point for you and Dougie and that original Get Fresh Crew team? What experience, what moment?
The highlight, I guess, will be traveling overseas. Like, we went to England, to the what they have over there, their Soul Train over there, you know what I mean? And we went to Holland and different places. So it was like big like that for us, you know what I mean? So it was a big experience to go cross seas to other countries. See, I'm from England, you know what I mean? So to go back to England like that, you know what I'm trying to say, is like, it's a big thing, you know what I mean?
Did you see family when you were over there? Or?
Yeah, I saw a little bit of family when I was over there. Yeah, so, yeah. They don't remember me. I was 11 years old when I left. Well, I mean, they know me because they know my parents, you know what I'm trying to say? And whatever's clever, we grew up a little something. But now I'm like 19, so I guess that's like 8 years later. So you know how it go. But they still had some family ties. You know what I mean? I went back to where I used to live, just to see the old buildings. You know what I'm saying? All that kind of good stuff. You know, and you know the people treated us like celebrities for that time. You know? Yeah.
And you're how old around this time then?
Now I'm not. I'm like 19, 20, like that. Between 19, 20, 21, like that.
So why did the Get Fresh crew break up then? What happened at that point?
Well, it was a finance thing, you know what I mean? Because, like I said, we was, not to blow up the kid's spot, you know, it's his ship, you know what I mean? So I was an invited guest, and, you know, the finances, I just had a situation with the finances. Like, if you do a show for, I don't know, $6,000 and you only getting 300, you know what I'm trying to say? It started getting crazy, you know what I mean? Not like, you know what I'm trying to say, not to rock the boat or nothing, you know what I mean? So I kind of said, yo, I'm gonna have to make make moves, you know what I mean? Or whatever's clever, you know what I mean? I want to destroy your ship, you know, but, you know, so whatever's clever from there, yeah.
So you leave the Get Fresh crew. This was
Uh-huh.
around when, maybe 86, 87?
Yeah, 86, 80,
Yeah.
yeah, 86, 87.
And this album we're here to talk about today comes out in 88.
Right.
So what was happening in those 2 years in the interim? Like, you're recording the
Oh,
album.
between the two albums?
Between
Lottie Dottie and
between
that?
leaving Get Fresh crew and recording and releasing Great Adventures.
Well, between that, I was with Def Jam, so, you know, it was a new experience for me. I had to make my own album by myself. I had to make the records, I had to make the music, the cuts, like I told you about the essay, the whole layout of things. And I had to make sure that I had tracks that would sell myself, because relying on producers, well, this is my theory, because sometimes you don't get lucky, you know what I mean? Relying on producers to make you famous don't always work, you know what I'm trying to say? So I had to put my own stuff together and make sure it sounded like a record and from scratch. And then you got to deal with a lot of politics, you know what I mean? With, you know, people needing to produce their records. Like, I don't think they should have put out Teenage Love first. I think they should have put out Children's Story or Mona Lisa, but they put out Teenage Love first. That was like trying to kill a nigga career, you know what I'm trying to say? Not like that, you know what I'm saying? You got Big Daddy Kane out there, you got Rakim with the nice fast joints, you know what I'm saying? So, but you know.
So who's that? Who can we blame?
Well, I'm just saying it's bad. It was bad. If you own a label and you're trying to make money, you put out your best foot forward. You know what I mean? Then you could slow down once the cat got recognition or whatever, or it's built up some fan base or something. You know what I mean? So, but other than that, you know, it was just a learning experience. You know what I mean? So I made Children's Story. I made Mona Lisa, Hey Young World. And, you know, the rest of them I made too, you know, but I wasn't too crazy about the music, you see what I'm saying? Except for Lick the Balls. No disrespect. You know what I mean? And so I had to sell myself, you know what I mean? So I pushed those records, and those are the ones that people remember the most, you know what I mean? The other ones, they're okay, but the public don't really remember the other ones as much as they remember the ones that I made myself.
Well, we're gonna go through these records, so maybe we can do that now. We'll go track by track if that's cool. All right. So
Yeah.
we're gonna play a little piece of each one of the songs off Great Adventures of Slick Rick. First track we're gonna hear a little something from.
All right.
All right.
All right.
All right. Song starts. Here's an oldie but goodie. So what's the history of that? Where did that come from?
I guess that was a humorous joint I used to do with Dougie, you know, before we made records. And it was just something to make the crowd laugh, you know what I mean? Pretty much like that. And basically, that's pretty much how I was playing around back then. It made the people laugh, you know what I mean? Was no disrespect to women, you know, ladies and all that stuff, you know what I mean? Don't take it personal, but it was just something humorous to humor people, you know what I mean? And, you know, stories to go beside it too, to make you reflect on why the person feels so negative towards the situation. So humor and cute story, and there it is. You know what I mean?
Now you did, if I remember correctly, is there like a mix that's like a beatbox mix on the 12?
That was Dougie Fresh beatboxing.
Yeah.
That's probably a cassette a long time ago. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Now you did the production on this track, or was this?
Did I? No, I don't think I did. No.
Okay. And you know, it's funny also, I think people remember, you did this song in Tougher Than Leather, the film
Yeah.
at the time.
I remember. See what I mean about selling yourself? You know what I'm saying? They took it and ran with it, and I got in a movie, you know. So that was clever, you know.
Right. What are your sort of comedic influences as well, though? Because these story rhymes are so classic, they're funny, but they're raw.
Right.
Did you listen to comedy records or anything like that back in the day?
I mean, I did listen to comedy records, but it didn't really inspire me to do it. I was really just being myself. I think that's just my nature. You know, like if you study like the Cinderella and the Seven Dwarfs, you know, you got one happy, one grumpy, one sad, one, you know, dark, and I think I fell into the happy. You know what I mean? So that was just my true name, and that's how humans are for real too, you know. There's some people that are like happy and stuff all the time, and there's some people that are grumpy all the time, they can't help it or whatever's clever, you know what I mean? And there's some people that are like Doc, always want to give you advice, no disrespect, fam. And, you know, so I think I fell in the category of happy, you know? So I just gave off a happy ambiance, you know what I mean?
I think it's funny too because there's one part in the song where you use unique words as well in your songs. You just have one part, and I think can't remember which part it is, but it's like the husband and the wife. He says he calls you Twinkles and she calls you Rover.
Yeah. Right. That would
Always
just
like
make
that
people
stuff.
laugh, you know, you got it. So anyway, yeah, that was just kid growing up, you know what I mean? No disrespect to the faith, you know. It was almost like being Moses before Moses was Moses. He's like, look, just taking things raw, like treat yourself good. See, a lot of people keep forgetting the next line is, don't treat nobody well until you're sure of the scoop. See, everybody beats you up with the line, you know, about prostitution. You know, yeah, you know what I'm saying? But it wasn't really coming that harsh, you know. It's just coming from a naive kid that looked at life like, well, better get mine before she try to play me the fuck out. I'm just playing.
You know, but that said, there is a lot of balance, I think, on this record, which we'll get to as we go through the songs.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go on to the next track, all right?
Yeah.
Give some applause. Come on, please.
All right.
It's one of my favorite songs you've ever done.
Thank you.
Jam Master Jay produced this record, is that correct? Or
No.
His name is on the record?
I don't know what it's doing there, but you know, whatever. No disrespect. God bless the dead, you know.
Right. Well, what do you think when you hear this now? What was going through your mind when you were creating this?
Just having fun, you know what I mean? Like I said, I was just making, this is between the, see, when I left Dougie and the Get Fresh crew, right, and I was on Def Jam, they was taking forever to put out a single. I don't know why they was taking so long, you know what I mean? So I went and snuck to Red Alert, and I gave him a cassette, and I said, Red, play this cassette, because I don't know if they sleeping with this put a nigga on the shelf shit. No, I'm serious. But play this and see what the public say, you know what I mean? And Red Alert played it, and the public liked it, you know what I mean? And then I guess they finally stopped playing games and took it off the shelf, you know what I'm saying? And whatever's clever from there, yeah. So I gave it to Red Alert. Red Alert put it out on the street as a cassette, because it was just a cassette. I gave it to him directly, because Red Alert was like Flex's today, you know? He ran the radio back then, you know what I mean? So he was a good guy, gave him the record, he played it for me, and then the public liked it, you know? I fed that Slick Rick hunger or whatever's clever, you know what I mean? It didn't sound as boring and slow as it sounds now.
It doesn't sound boring or slow at all.
But you know, yeah, depends on what speed you put out. No,
you know, it's funny because in the production on this record, you know, it has that shuffle, which is kind of a continuation of some of the, like the show in a way. Was that a conscious sort of thing to try to like keep that thread?
Well, not really. It just worked. You know what I mean? It's like you find a shaker and the shaker works, and you can use it again. You use it again. If it don't, then it don't. You know what I mean? And it's pretty much Impeach the President played by instruments. You know what I mean? Impeach the President was a whole breakbeat record, so whole beat records always work. You know, if you listen to most hip hop records today, well, not all of them, but a lot, you'll see that the blueprint is like the drum pattern of an old breakbeat record, pretty much. So you follow, like, that's another, jewel. You just follow the pattern that already works, or where your flow, like Missy's flow, Missy and Timbaland, their style is like a children's story, the show sound, boom ta boom boom ta boom ta boom ta boom ta boom ta boom boom ta. So that works for Missy, you know what I mean? And Timbaland, that's if you really listen to a lot of Timbaland tracks, that is the bottom drum pattern, and then you redecorate it any old which way you want, you know what I mean? And it works, So what else clever?
I think one of the things lyrically that stands out to me, and it's in full display on this record, is your style being so unique for the time. It's like you said, there's this sort of like thing in hip hop where everybody's super aggro or whatever. You diss people on this record, sort of subliminally, but you do it in this way that's so like, I'm just gonna do this, but I'm not even gonna act like it's really a diss.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Uh-huh.
Would you say that's accurate?
Well, my style was never really battling, you know what I mean? That was pushed upon me, you know what I mean? Because it just was pushed upon me, you know what I mean? I was just a happy little humorous rapper, and all these angry motherfuckers, you know what I'm saying, son? Coming at niggas with their angry shit, you know what I'm saying? So, like, pushing, confrontational situations in front of you, you know what I mean? That's why I say, like, I'm not the type that disrespects just to earn respect, but I can't get conquered in my style of rapping, whatever's clever. And, just gently, doing my little, whatever you call it, wise as an owl, soft as a dove thing, And, because you know how the game is, kid. It's really like that. They not going to stop. Just keep coming,
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So you make your mark, and then you try to give yourself some space in between all the ruckus, you know what I mean? And if you're able to make space for yourself, then you're fine,
Yeah. Okay. Everyone should know this.
All right?
Okay. Once upon a time, not long ago, when people wore pajamas and lived life slow. All right. So, where did that come from? First of all, where did that?
It's like a bedtime story. So if you're talking to little kids, you're telling them you're visioning like you're talking to little kids. So you're telling them that once upon a time, not long ago, where they had pajamas on like you got on right now, and live life slow. You know what I mean? So whatever's clever like that.
The details in this story are the things, obviously Dave the Dope Fiend shooting dope. Everyone knows these parts, this song. Where did the details come from, when you're trying to put together a narrative?
I guess it's imagination mixed with your reality, your ambiance, your radar, whatever, you know what I mean? So at the time, heroin was on its way out. But we was like, it wasn't totally out, but it was on its way out, you know what I mean? So we just basically saw a couple of cats with the big hands, you know what I mean? And, 125th Street by the train station, because like a methadone clinic or whatever, you know what I mean? So you see the fat hand cats, you know what I mean? And the nodding and stuff, you know what I mean? And then you watch the movies from that time, from the late 70s, and you see the whole ghetto ambiance, you know what I mean? So you just incorporate it to make the story a little richer and realistic or whatever.
If it was your choice, this would have been the first single, the first song released.
Yeah, it would have been the first. That or Mona Lisa.
Yeah. But I mean, it wound up doing okay.
Yeah,
I guess.
it went okay. Yeah.
Okay, let's keep going. All right, this is a lot of people's, one of their favorite songs off of this record.
Okay.
You know, I think for the fans who, you know, maybe go beyond just the radio hits or the very popular club songs, you know what I'm saying?
Okay, all right.
But this story goes everywhere. I mean, it goes from, you know, what you were talking about as far as like somebody being picked on. It goes to the day from back then, Latin Quarter, seeing Boogie down, you know, performing, to all kinds of other wild stuff, you know, episode with the girl, what do they find in the boyfriend's fridge or freezer or whatnot, and then the end, which is crazy. What, you know, how did this come together this way?
Once again, imagination and stories you hear from other people. You know, kids always tell fantastic stories of what we saw or what we did or somebody with a crazy reputation. So you just incorporate it all into a story, you know, and make it seem dramatic and realistic. See, we were just kids at the time. We don't know nothing about no big drug dealers owning and having nice cars and pretty girls and, you know, blowing the freezers, not heads in the freezers, blowing the freezers, you know what I'm saying? But we just use our imagination and make the story drastic for our environment. See, our environment doesn't really get portrayed too greatly on TV and different places, you see what I'm saying? It just, especially now. So it's like a modern day Shaft, you know what I mean? Like a modern day Shaft or a modern day across 110th Street, like that, you know what I mean? So it was just using your imagination and making it interesting. It's not really a movie, but you could vision it like a movie, you know what I mean? So pretty much like if you was to take that song and turn it into a movie, it would have been a pretty good movie too. You know what I'm saying? So just imagination and, you know, the whole shebang, yeah.
I mean, the other thing about it is just, you know, way the song ends, and if you don't know, go back and listen to it later. But it's, you know, it's pretty raw how it ends, and yet I don't think a lot of artists at the time would have gone there with a narrative, you know what I mean? They wouldn't have been that courageous or daring or inventive to think of that. And it's humorous, but it's also telling a moral, too.
Yeah, like I said before, you know, a lot of brothers was into battling, you know what I mean? So when I was doing my thing, that would be like a distraction, you know what I mean? Like coming at you like this while that's not your niche to battle. Your niche is to tell stories and humor and whatever like that, you know what I mean? So a lot of people, I guess everybody has their niche. Some people are great at battling, some people are great at love songs. Some people their niche is to tell stories with humor or whatever.
Okay.
All right, thanks, guys.
All right. Classic breakbeats in there.
Yeah, well, that was just an album filler, so you don't gotta, you ain't gotta clap. That shit's garbage. I'll tell you myself. That was an album filler. You know what I mean? So what you gonna do?
Really think there's no merit in that one at all?
Nah, the record label said to do it, and that's whatever's clever.
But then when you're in a situation like that, and they tell you to do this, and you know, I mean...
You know, you are outsider looking in, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? So if this is their toy and they tell you this is what they want, it's like a give and take. You got to give a little.
Yeah.
So you give a little.
That's what I meant. It's like, how do you navigate that? Because it must be
Right.
tough.
Well, yeah, like I said, if I didn't sell myself, you see what I'm saying? These would be the records that would be, you know, if you don't sell yourself, you know what I'm saying, and you rely on A&R and producer and record label opinion, then that's what you're going to end up with as your first single.
Right. Okay, moving on. We're going to get into a song, Indian Girl. It's very hard not to actually let the songs play all the way through, but, you know, in the interest of time. This song, you know, you spoke a little bit about earlier about treat 'em like a prostitute and getting some flack. You know, what was the reaction to this song when it came out?
Nothing really. It was just like another, I'm using your imagination. I guess for children who grew up at that age, you know, cowboys and Indians was ever popular, whatever's popular for our age group, you know what I mean? So it was just using your imagination and talking about cowboys and Indians and meeting an Indian girl, and kids are. It always leads to sex sooner or later. And so there it is.
It's funny because I remember years later reading, or from coming from the music journalism world and people talking about music and analyzing it and stuff like that, people drawing a parallel between the story and the song and what the pioneers in this country did to Native Americans. Did you ever hear that?
Well, everybody knows the history, like Thanksgiving, but you don't want to touch on subjects that's going to get everybody upset, you know what I mean? Just keep it moving like that, Cowboys, Indians, pretty Indian girl with a little feathers, a little outfit, you know what I mean? And, whatever's clever. I didn't do it, I'm the black guy, remember?
Okay. All right, this was, as we mentioned earlier, the first single from this album, Teenage Love.
Thank you.
Now, the video for this song, you mentioned you had Kane in the video. It was like a whole sort of drama that was played out and everything. And these are like, but you were conflicted at the time of releasing this. So, how did you sort of like go into, going through the whole process of putting this out as a lead single? Because it's still, to me, I understand where you're coming from. I think everybody in the room understands. But at the same time, it still sounds,
Yeah.
really good. Maybe
Right.
not as the first single from that time,
Right.
coming off of your career with the Get Fresh crew right into Def Jam. But your thoughts on that?
No, it was I wrote the song, it was a nice song, but like I said, I would have put out Children's Story first, you know what I mean, or Mona Lisa. But yeah, it was basically just talking about a love story from a young man's perspective, you know what I mean? Don't hurt me again and all that type of stuff. So I was just trying to catch the essence of myself as a youth going through the whole mating experience, you know what I mean? So everybody falls in love and get their heart broke once, you know what I mean? And then you toughen up and whatever's clever from there. So it was basically a story about going through those type of channels, you know what I mean? And saying, don't hurt me again, whatever's clever like that.
Now, what was the Bomb Squad's role in either this or any of the other songs on this album? Because they have some production credit here and there.
And what's the Bomb Squad now? That's
Hank Shockley, Keith,
Oh.
Eric Sadler, and those guys.
I guess at the time they was like Public Enemy's producers, so I guess the record label, suggested that, work with the top producers for that day, you know what I mean? So that's why you probably see their names around on the album. So, yeah, so that's why they're there too, yeah.
Any other thoughts on working that process or anything like that? Or did you just feel self-sufficient, like you could just do your own thing?
Well, no, I couldn't do my own thing, you know what I mean? It takes a team, it takes two heads is better than one, each one teach one, So that's pretty much how I view things. So I guess each one teach one, so you got to work with what you got, you know what I mean? And that's how that goes, so boom.
Right. Okay. I think we all know this one too.
Ladies and
Thanks.
It's funny because even just sitting here playing these songs, Children's Story and these are story rhymes that have no chorus in the middle of them at all. They don't break up into verses.
Yeah,
They
true
continue,
indeed. Yeah.
And that was, pretty unique at the time, or pretty unique now, I'd say even more so.
Okay.
The two voices, you're adopting two voices, playing characters. Was this something you were doing from back in the day, from early on, or was it something you developed later?
It was something I developed after Dougie Fresh. It was just something fun that I know that it was a nice essence you get from two people passing a mic back and forth, like the Cold Crush or whoever, you know what I mean? So I figured could play both parts at the same time, you know what I mean? So you record one, and then you rewind it, and then you record the next one answering it, you know what I mean? And it worked,
How did you wind up doing the voice at the end, where her voice is singing? Was that you?
Well, you just pretend to be a girl,
Is it pitched up or something? It sounds like you had to do something
No,
to your voice.
no. You
That's just you without any.
You just change it like, if you see me. Whatever works, you know? Yeah. Yeah, thanks.
All right, we're gonna go move on to Kit. Now, for those who may not know, what's the premise of this song based on?
It was based on Michael Knight and Kit the Car. So I watched the show and I thought it, you know, incorporated into a song, you know?
Right.
So I just pretended I was Michael Knight and the car, and I was on an adventure and get kidnapped, and the car comes to get me, and you know, the whole Michael Knight bit.
Never,
Yeah.
never met David Hasselhoff at any
No,
point in your career?
no,
Okay.
no.
Just curious
No.
if there's any kind of reaction
Yeah.
for that. And again, two voices, the same sort of approach
Yeah.
to this, more or less.
Well, it's like a story. So you
Yeah.
see one person is calling the next person, and he responds, and exactly same thing like that.
I want to get to this because this is definitely one of everybody's favorites. Hey Young World. So this song is totally dedicated to, you know, pretty positive message.
Yeah.
What was your mindset going into creating this?
I guess it was just, again, seeing life from my eyes at that age, you know what I mean? And, you know, be having a job and everything, you know what I mean? And seeing, you know, the mistakes that others may fall into, you know what I mean? So it was just writing a rap from my perspective as a person with a job and a high school diploma or whatever's clever, you know what I mean? Not to knock nobody else that, you know, find it hard to get that, you know, high school diploma or whatever's clever, you know what I mean? Because it's a different struggle, you see what I'm saying? And basically just telling the story like that, you know what I mean? Like, look, just, you know, don't blame society, hold your head and all that type of stuff. Not trying to be too rough, you know what I mean? Just relate from my point of view in my environment.
But it's simple, but it's, you know, so
Yeah.
effective. Is there a favorite, you know, jewel or line from any of this song that stands out to you after all these years?
Ooh, I guess it would have to be if you smoke crack, your kids will smoke crack tomorrow. Yeah, so, you know, stuff like that, you know, whatever's clever like that. Yeah.
And this also has, to me, like an interesting vocal arrangement because, like, the background vocals are doing half the rhymes and then you're answering them.
Yeah,
you know?
I got that from them, those little squirrels guys, I don't know what they was called. Chipmunks or something,
Chipmunks?
yeah. So I was just pretending to be the chipmunks and the guy talking back and forth to each other. Didn't really sound like them, but you know that's the angle I was going with.
Okay, yeah, I didn't realize it, and we learned something. The Chipmunks actually had a great influence on Hey Young World. Okay, we're gonna get down to the last two records, and I want to leave time for folks to ask a couple of questions before we get out of here.
All right.
Right?
Thanks. Thank you.
Now you mentioned this one earlier in the conversation. You mentioned this song specifically. This was
Yeah.
what stands out to you about this?
Well, it was a good track. It was a good track, you know what I mean? So it had electricity, and it was stimulating, and, you know, it helped me write the rap, you know what I mean? So that was a good one from the Hank Shockley crew, you know?
Yeah. But you
Yeah,
say that in, like, it sounds like you're not satisfied with a bunch of the other tracks, but how can that be? These are
Because I got perception, motherfucker? No, I'm just playing. I only play with you. I only play with you. No, no, I don't. No, I'm only playing with you, kid. No, no, but basically you can hear the difference. You know what I mean? That one has soul, and the other ones ain't got no soul. So it makes it hard to make them joints work. You don't have no drive to make them work. So you just do what you're told. Album fillers. As long as you got like 4 or 5, for at least 4 hits, guaranteed hits, then you're okay. You know what I mean? For an album, you know what I mean? But, you know, so that was a good one that Hank Shockley made. That was the best one they made, you know, on the album. So I give him props for that one.
okay. Just sort of sitting back now. We're here celebrating this piece of work, this album of yours. I mean, after all these years, you know, what do you think? You know, what do you think about this album? I mean, it's a classic album that people revere. You know, it set a bar for storytelling. It set a bar for some of these great party tracks. It set the bar for, you know, Hey Young World with certain jewels being dropped in different lyrics. You know, what's your perspective now, these years later? We're here talking about this, celebrating it.
Well, I'm glad that, you know, it was made in those days because, you know, the market is pretty tight right now, you know what I mean? So we're like the golden age of hip hop, so we're like Patti LaBelle and Gladys Knight of hip hop, you know what I mean? We'll always get a show. You know what I'm saying? Gladys over here. Yeah. Like Gladys getting her money in Vegas, you know what I mean? She don't really got to work no more, you know what I mean? Her joints is, you know, from the 70s, you know what I'm saying? So luckily for us, we made it to the golden age of hip hop so we could still make a living, you know what I mean? Doing shows and stuff like that. And I'm glad it's a classic, you know, a classic album. I appreciate all that stuff, you know? Like I said, the market is very tight right now. It's very controlled, you know what I mean? So it's hard to open up people's eyes to the vets' place in hip hop, you know what I mean? The vets are supposed to run record labels and do certain things that incorporate your culture, you know? No disrespect to nobody, you know what I mean? But if I can't be Bruce Lee, so how can I teach you karate, you know what I mean? So if you come from, how can somebody else give you a perspective of what hip hop's supposed to be if you're not from that culture per se? So just gotta open up a couple eyes and let you know, appreciate a person's experience and, you know, whatever's clever, and open up the door. Because if you watch 106 in Park right now, it's very young, you know what I mean? It's very, very young and very whack. No disrespect. I'm sorry. I guess you niggas ain't got perception. No, I'm just fucking, I just fuck with you. This shit's straight garbage. But you know, they got, you know, there are kids, we gotta support them. They gotta eat. They gotta follow the rules. Remember, I told you there's rules to this thing, kid. They say you rap on this, you gotta rap on it. You know what I mean? You gotta make it sound like the joint's fire. You know, you see that. You seen the award shows. You see what I'm saying, kid? Now, let's say there was a brother that was in charge of the music industry, the black part of the music industry. What you think he was gonna say? He's gonna be like, "Come on, you gotta step it up, or you're not going. You gotta step it like James Brown. You gotta be like Rick James. You gotta step it up. You need soul. You need meat and potatoes. You know what I'm saying?"
Well, that's certainly what this record and, you know, all your recordings have. So usually we do take questions, but I'm told that we do have to wrap things up today,
Okay.
unfortunately. But we're gonna have a little bit extra something right after this. But before we
Okay.
go, we just say thank you and
Thank
show our
you, guys.
appreciation one more
Appreciate
time.
it.
The great Slick Rick.
Thank you, guys. Thank you. Thanks, man. No disrespect, family. Just playing. No disrespect, brother. No disrespect, kid.
So thank you for being here. We're gonna take a pause, or we're gonna, okay. So Rick has got to get ready for tonight, so he's gonna do his thing. And right now we're actually gonna bring in another guest to speak for just a few more minutes. You all know him. He is the ruler of the airwaves of New York City and has been for many years. He is from this very borough, and he's been so gracious to take a few minutes today to talk a little bit about hip-hop in the Bronx and his experiences. So please welcome Funkmaster Flex. Have a seat, sir. Do you have a microphone there, or do you need one? Okay.
That was so cool listening to that whole album and to hear Slick Rick's perspective and what he was about, what he was thinking about at the time was amazing.
That's what we try to do at these sessions, is just go through the thought process and the creative process of the people and how they did it. Now you, sir, this is, you know, your old stomping ground. You were from the Bronx. Where did you grow up?
I actually, Derima Avenue in the Bronx, which was, I guess that's the Northeast. So I was also influenced. My heaviest influence was the Cold Crush Brothers, uh, Grandmaster Caz, JDL, Easy AD, KG, Charlie Chase, Tony Tone. That's my biggest influence for the music.
And I guess, you know, we're here, we're celebrating, you know, each of the 5 boroughs.
Mm-hmm.
You know, what to you is the essence of the Bronx in terms of hip hop? You know, it's the foundation, but what else is it to you?
Without giving up my age, um, eh, something that was key is kids that were older than me used to play tapes and used to hear routines. So you used to hear Grand Wizard Theodore, Fantastic Five, and I believe it was the L Brothers at first, and it got a little, the members changed, and you're gonna hear me say Cold Crush Brothers a lot today, because they was for the Bronx, Grandmaster Caz was the first one I ever saw wear a hat like this, and stand a certain way, and be the leader, and that was very slick, and he was fly. And then I used to sneak out to parties, and I didn't know what Grandmaster Caz looked like, but when I was a party where they were, you would see each rapper slowly go over and say hi to him. So I knew he's either Melly Mel, Grandmaster Caz, or Bambaataa, or something of that sort. So then you'd figure it out. So that was what was key for me. But I used to go to the Skakey on Allerton Avenue. How many people have been to the Skakey roller rink? That was where the artists used to perform, at least that I could go to and I was allowed to go to. This might be 81, 82. Once again, I'm not giving up my age, but I was there. But the tapes I used to listen to were from the park. So I remember 100 Park. I never went. I wasn't at Valley Park. There was a lot of robberies over there, and I didn't want to get robbed. But Jamaican music ruled the land. I'm Jamaican, and my parents are Jamaican. So a lot of people from West Indian heritage gravitated to the Northeast Bronx. And then the Jamaican kids allowed the hip-hop to play. So when they were tired of the hip-hop noise, there was usually a couple shots that rang off, and then we'd clear it up. But that's my, I didn't know how influential the Bronx was when I was a kid until you started to ask other people. And then I'd ask a kid from Queens, well, there's this group, the Cold Crush Brothers, and they would say something, and I was like, I never heard of them. They'd say who was from their town, but they knew who was from my town. So, that was, the DJing aspect was always cool to me. Grandmaster Flash was very cool to me, like the way he would throw the record in and the swag that he had. And, people always talk about Melly Mel, but I want to say it was Cowboy who passed away, who, just his swag, and that wasn't the word we used back then, but his cool, or what he was about, so those guys were, who I looked up to and who I wanted to be like.
I mean, how do you put it into terms that, people who weren't there, can sort of understand the level of importance that these guys were, and say as an example, like who would be like, a Flash or a Kaz? They were superstars to you guys back then, right,
you know, the equivalent of when you see Puffy come in a room, you know, if you saw one of these guys or Jay-Z, you know, I always compare a record to It's the Benjamins, you know, to me back then. So, and I think a neighborhood celebrity that you could touch and reach out and touch and see, you know, was important. And that's what everybody just did it. You just wanted your neighbor. I just wanted people to know I DJ'd. I didn't care if I made a penny. I didn't care. I just wanted somebody to say to me, "You DJ, right? You DJ?" That's all I wanted. And that's what those guys fought for. They weren't fighting really to make records and record deals. And you know, the Bronx is I mean, look, I don't want to you know, Busy Bee, Bambaataa, you know, there was so many different. Jazzy J was very talented. There used to be a club on Gun Hill Road called the T Connection, and Richie T, I think, used to do the sound system. I was never there. I just had the tapes. I don't want to come up here and start lying. I just have the cassette tapes. But you know, that's my, you know, how I look at pioneers. You know how like you have a baseball card or an important baseball card? If you had tapes of crews and what crews were important was your hot commodity. Cold Crush was a hot commodity, and that's what you traded, you know. And then, is everyone in here originally from the Bronx? Who's originally from the Bronx? I'm gonna tell you how this used to work. On Thursday, you used to ask someone, "Where's Cold Crush Brothers playing?" And if you had a boom box, you always had to have the latest Cold Crush tape. And people always knew who did not have the latest Cold Crush tape. And the person who had the latest was the coolest nigga on the block for that weekend. Because you had the new routine, the fresh Duracells in the boombox, and you were the man. And that was what, it's still that concept now, like having the new Nikes or whatever, you know, it was about the new Cold Crush tape. And the reason why is, it was just, they were the flyest, and that was what you patterned after. I told you, you're gonna hear that name a lot from me tonight, man. That's what I grew up on.
What was your first jam like when you got to finally get out there and play in the neighborhood?
I remember, what was the street? It must have been Murdoch Avenue by Edenwald. I went to school over there, and I think, Slick Rick was talking about a record called Impeach the President. And that was a hot record because when the Cold Crush was setting up, the DJ would always rub that record. So you were always associated with, oh my God, something's gonna happen. So Impeach the President was a hard record to get on vinyl. So since I had the record, you were allowed to kind of get in, like if a kid had turntables, I would mention that I got Impeach the President. So that got you like okay, I'm gonna go into the house. And then sometimes it was 4 or 5 MCs. So if you start cutting up and you're catching it on time, then if a MC grabs the mic, that means you're official. So it was about DJing for MCs when I grew up, and then the party thing did come afterwards, but when I was growing up, DJing for the MCs was cool, and being on the radio was corny. So that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to have MCs, and I want to be Jam Master J, comes Funkmaster Flex. So I was kind of patterned that's why when in that genre of mixing it up for rappers. And I used to carry records for Chuck Chill Out, who was a legendary DJ from the Bronx, and he was on 98.7 KISS at the time. And I used to drive him around. And if you were the driver, you were guaranteed to hit all clubs. So I used to drive Chuck Chill Out, hoping. Is Chris Lighty here? Where's Chris Lighty? Did he leave? He could tell this story kind of, you know. I hung out. I drove Chuck Chill Out all week so I can go to a club called Latin Quarter. Not the Latin Quarter on 96th Street. It was in Manhattan. It was in the 40s, and Red Alert used to play there. Red Alert used to have on burgundy Lees, suede Adidas, a T-shirt. His hair was cut perfectly, and he had on jewelry. This, to me, was the epitome of fresh. Like, this was, I'm sorry, he had on shell toe Adidas with the burgundy stripe. I remember it well. So this particular club was where you saw Eric B. and Rakim. I mean, I want to tell the story right before that. There was a club before that Red had. It was called the Roxy, where Bambaataa and him used to play. Like, that's one thing. But Latin Quarter, I don't know if anyone here has ever been to the Tunnel nightclub. I patterned that whole thing off of Latin Quarter. It was a club where Chris Lighty used to be there too. And it was a club where you could see the rappers and their jewelry was glistening. And I used to see Dana Dane. I saw Slick Rick coming in one time with so many jewels. It was so amazing to me. And Red Alert, Red Alert was playing these records, but it was just something about that room, man. When he's rubbing those records and those artists are coming in and they're going into him and saying, what's up? At the time, I was working at the Marriott, frying French fries and cooking burgers. And I used to try to get off there early to go to the Latin Quarter. And I saw in there one time, everyone's aware who KRS-One is, right? I saw in there KRS-One battle Melly Mel, which was amazing. I saw KRS perform another time, and Bismarck, KRS-One was on the bill, and Bismarck got on the stage and said, that was great, but I'm going to be here next week, and threw on Nobody Beats the Biz and started dancing and sent that place so crazy. But I patterned my whole movement off of the Latin Quarter. It was about trying to get in free, girls trying to see you get in free, because then they'll think you're somebody, even though you're a biscuit. Then you had to get to the bar and hopefully have a drink ticket because you had no money. Because you had the whatever money you had in your pocket was to get the car out the lot. So it was that whole experience. I saw MC Search in there. Are people familiar with who MC Search is? Third Base. He sold 4 million, 5 million records. This guy was a different type of biscuit in Latin Quarter. Crystal, I lie to you not. Listen, I was a bigger biscuit than him. Remember, I'm in there smelling like cheeseburgers and fries. So I'm already I'm not even on his biscuit level. I'm carrying records and that's it. But it's unfortunate that there's no video, I don't think, of this place. But there's photos, right? Every Paradise was key. Every rapper, Eric B used to drive a Rolls Royce. Not, listen, I know there's people out here right now with the Phantoms and all of that. He was driving a Rolls Royce back then, '86. And it was parked in front, roped off, and Rakim never came out. It was always Eric B. And the biggest star I ever seen come in there was DMC at the time when My Adidas was out, and he was standing in the booth, and the whole nightclub stared at him the whole night, and it didn't matter. That was what was instrumental for me. That was my life after that club. I knew that's what I wanted to do. I want to do this. I want to be like Red Alert. I want to be in the booth, and I want to play music. And the tunnel, my dream came true. That was my chance to have my Latin Quarter.
What did you pattern, if anything, what did you pattern your radio show after?
I'm like Chuck Chill Out, Red Alert, Molly, Mr. Magic. You know, I'm a very big Kid Capri fan. You know, and everyone is aware of who Kid Capri is, right? I don't have to break that down for you. Kid Capri is the greatest DJ to ever touch down on earth, ever. Okay? Okay. So that's all of those people I was listening to and admiring. I never had hate in my blood when I was coming through. Right, Chris? You know how some people are envious? I was amazed to see Kid Capri and Red Alert. I never thought I'd make it. I never even figured what it would be like to make it. I never figured what it'd be like to have more than $100 in my pocket. I just love what they did. So that's who I patterned, you know, afterwards.
What do you want people to take out of this talk here tonight, as far as the Bronx, as far as, you know, just everything we've heard tonight, you know, from you, from Rick?
The Bronx is sometimes overlooked because sometimes we're not always current with an artist of the moment all the time. I mean, there's a lot of artists that came out of the Bronx, but you know, people always scream Brooklyn, but Brooklyn is like 50 times bigger than the Bronx, so of course there's going to be more rappers out of Brooklyn. People never do the math, but you know, Kool Herc is instrumental in from the break beats and what things came about. And man, if there's anything that I could say about the Bronx is let's always remember the person who, you know, created so much taking the break to the beginning, but finding a funky break was Kool Herc. And am I saying this right, Chris? He's the known to man. You know, there was always people who were a little bit prior, but they didn't have that vision. Kool Herc was proud to make noise and be noticed with a particular breakbeat. So, you know, I know there's some young people in here that probably know me for just playing Lil Wayne records. But prior to that, you know, you know, that was what I was about, what it was about, and what it went to. And so if there's anything I want people to remember about the Bronx is that, you know, Kool Herc liked something, and it's where it is today, you know?
And it's you know, if anybody was here earlier, it's still what you're about. You would rock and break beats, double copies back and forth here, you know, for everybody, so.
I know you, look, once again, I know sometimes you hear me on that box, and I'm like maybe playing records back and forth, but I'm nice on that set. So when it comes to rubbing and getting it in, you know, that's something. I was going to say, you know, listening to the Slick Rick album, like, lick the balls. I know that sounds just crazy, pause. But the record he's scratching in the hook, Cool is Back. And what's the Ooh So Fine? Who made that? First Tapes, that's maybe was. Oh, no. So fine, you're so fine. Howard Johnson's So Fine. But the fact that he's scratching that in the hook back then, when that record dropped, was sending the place, that Cool is Back, that was hip hop at its finest. So when I listen to even what's the one that some of the records that Slick Rick was saying was album filler, man. You know, those were some a teacher. That loop was what it was in the club. And if you was a DJ and you couldn't catch that, you was getting booed out the club. And he had another record that he said there was album filler for him, which he had sampled scratching.
Let's Get Crazy. Yeah.
Right, the scratching. And that was, you know, Jazzy J made that record legendary. So for Slick Rick, you know, all those, all the things that Slick Rick is just natural to him was him. It's not just his lyrics that makes that record so crazy. It's the fact that he was injecting every piece of the moment, from talking about clothing, the samples he was using, and the storytelling, and even the robberies, because in Latin Quarter, that was what you was afraid of, man. You did not want to get robbed in front of no one you knew. And Brooklyn, anybody here from Brooklyn? Brooklyn was so legendary and ornery when they came in the club, making it be known. So you just didn't want a problem. So that, and look, Slick Rick's a cool cat, and he's talking about he didn't want to get robbed. So that was what, once you went to Manhattan, that's what you thought about. But if people could remember Kool Herc, would be a great thing.